Welcome to Daps Magic, the podcast. I'm Mr. Daps. And since 2004, Daps Magic has been a place for people to celebrate both Disney and positive stuff. We've been having a blast doing that. We love Disney, we love people, and we love making new friends in the realm of Disney and positive stuff. That's what this podcast is all about. We have conversations that we hope will lead to deeper conversations with you, our friend and listener. We'd love to continue the conversations on social media, our Patreon, or even our Facebook group. We recognize that conversations are way more fun when we have them with friends, so we hope you'll join in with them. We also hope that you'll take a moment to leave us a positive review wherever you happen to be listening to Daps Magic, the podcast. It's an exciting time to be a fan of Disney and positive stuff. Just here in Southern California alone, there is a ton to be geeking out about. We're currently enjoying Season of the Force, also Pixar Fest here at the Disneyland Resort, and you can also hear about those on episodes 2 and 3 of this podcast. We also have D23, the ultimate Disney fan event that's coming in August, and I recently did an interview with Beyond the Mouse podcast from the Illinois NPR, where I discussed just this. I wouldn't be surprised if we talk more about it in the future on this podcast as well. Perhaps most exciting, though, is the return of Fantasmic on May 24th to the Disneyland Resort. Once again, the powers of Mickey's imagination will be lighting up the night around the rivers of America as thousands of guests come together and enjoy one of the most magical shows that Disney has ever produced. At least I think so. The central premise of Fantasmic is Mickey Mouse's imagination coming to life and, well, then him losing control of it before he regains control of it. For many fans, this is a story that has both delighted and terrified us as kids. Thankfully, Mickey always wins, and that happy moment where he says, "Some imagination, huh?" brings smiles to those who see and hear it. One of those kids who heard Mickey Mouse say this when he was a kid was Bret Iwan, the official voice of Mickey Mouse. The love of this show and Mickey Mouse would eventually change Bret's life and lead him to become the voice of Mickey Mouse. It's hard to believe it, but that change happened 15 years ago. Join me as we listen to an interview Daps Magic did with Bret, where he shares his story about how he landed this iconic role. I'm very pleased to be joining DC on this segment, this time as we interview just a great guy who also happens to have a fantastic job. Bret Iwan, formerly of Hallmark, now works for the Walt Disney Company, voicing the most famous mouse in the world. He is also an incredible artist. Most importantly, though, he's an avid Disney fan. Welcome, Bret.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get things started, I'd like to ask you just a couple of fun questions about Disneyland in a segment that I'm going to dedicate to my buddy Johnny Five that we're going to call My Fast Five. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go fast.
Okay, fast.
What is your first memory at Disneyland?
My first memory is meeting Winnie the Pooh, back when Winnie the Pooh had a gigantic head and a pot of honey on top of it.
Nice. What is your favorite Disneyland memory?
Favorite Disneyland memory is the first time I saw Fantasmic.
Cool. What is your favorite show?
Fantasmic.
Of course.
Easy.
What is your favorite attraction?
Haunted Mansion.
Who is your... Of course.
Good choice.
Who is your favorite character to visit?
Is it cheating if I say Mickey Mouse?
I suppose not.
Minnie. My favorite to me is Minnie.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. I just thought it'd be fun to throw in a couple basic questions that perhaps you're not asked every day.
And I'm going to start with a question. You have two very different talents, one being your voice acting and the other your artistic abilities. Could you tell us perhaps how you got started in each?
Sure. Well, I guess I should start with the one I've been doing the longest, which is art. As long as I can remember, I've been drawing. Some of my earliest memories were drawing with my dad on the ground, pausing Disney cartoons and drawing characters. So I've just always been drawing. I learned to draw by drawing Mickey Mouse and all the rest of the characters, and went through the normal art classes through elementary school and high school, and then I eventually went on to art school at Ringling College of Art and Design. And from there, I was hired as an illustrator with Hallmark Cards in Kansas City, Missouri. So that's when I officially began my professional art career. I did that for 5 years with Hallmark, and then that's when the other talent picks up, the voiceover. I really never pursued it or had any intentions of pursuing it as a career, but I couldn't help but take advantage of the opportunity when it came in front of me, and I found out about the auditions for Mickey. So it's at that point that I really considered voiceover in a professional way. Before that, it just kind of been something I did for fun. I did it for friends, and the Mickey voice, that is. It was kind of my way of making fun of the fact that I was a fan. Not that that's something to be embarrassed about, but my friends definitely gave me a hard time about it because I was such a big Disney fan. So I did the Mickey voice every now and then just to get some laughs, and we'd go to the Disney theme parks and I'd throw in an oh boy or a laugh just to get them smiling. So that's how I think that answers your question, how I got a start in both those talents, as you referred to them.
Well, Kansas City was very instrumental to Walt Disney's career. How did this come into play when you moved there to work at Hallmark in that very same town? Was it equally instrumental for you?
Well, I will say it definitely was a plus to moving to Kansas City. I did not know much of Kansas City other than my short little interview period I had with Hallmark. And when I showed up there, I really only saw a small portion of the downtown area, and it kind of had the feel of a cow town, like a lot of people refer to it. But I knew that Walt had history there, and so I was excited to discover that. And once I moved there, I found out that there's all kinds of history there. Much like people love Disneyland because it's a place where Walt walked, and you can, in essence, walk in his footsteps. In Kansas City, it's the same thing. He spent a large portion of his life there, and really began his artistic endeavors there because he took classes at the Kansas City Art Institute, where I actually took some classes as well when I was working at Hallmark. He started his first animation studios there with the Laugh-O-Gram Studios, starting the Alice comedies. And it was only when his animation studios went bankrupt that he decided to move to L.A. So a lot of, basically, Disney had its start in Kansas City. And without Kansas City, we wouldn't have what we know as Disney today. So it was definitely cool to know that I was living and working in a town that was so instrumental in Walt's career. Hallmark's headquarters is actually only a couple blocks away from where the Laugh-O-Gram Studios was. So on my drive home and to work every day, actually, I would pass by it. And, it was just kind of special to know that such a significant part of Walt's life was there. And I was getting to experience the same town that he lived in for so long.
Awesome. I'm just, that's so inspiring. I can't believe it. So, so you're working at Hallmark, and then somehow you end up back in California working for Disney.
Yes.
Could you briefly tell us how that happened?
Sure. Well, I was working at Hallmark, and I had actually taken the day off of work. I was remodeling my bathroom, and I don't know why I shared that little personal tidbit, but it's part of the story. And that evening, I checked my email, and I received an email from my friend who's a Pixar animator. Her name's Jamie Landis. We went to art school together, and the subject of the email said, "Do you want to be the voice of Mickey Mouse?" And when I got that, I kind of thought that it was a joke because I had been doing the Mickey voice earlier that day when talking to my dog. It's kind of embarrassing. I haven't admitted that to a lot of people, but I was at home by myself all day long. I started talking to my dog, and I started doing the Mickey voice. So I thought, my first reaction when I got that email was somebody heard me and is setting me up on a horrible prank. Turned out it wasn't. It was a legit email that went on to explain the audition process that was going on and searched for an understudy for the then current voice, Wayne Allwine. So I took a few days to let the shock wear off. I practiced a little, and then I called into the hotline they had set up, did my audition, and a few months later I received a call, and that started a callback audition where I had to fly out to L.A. and audition in person. So I did that, and then it was a couple months later when I got the call that they had some projects to start working on. Unfortunately, Wayne had passed away during that time, so Pluto! Sorry, Pluto's getting a little rambunctious. So, where was I? During that time, Wayne had passed away, so what was intended to be an understudy position turned out to be a official position. They needed somebody to pick up where he had left off. So that's when I came in. I started on a few projects. They wanted to test me out, and after those projects were done, they were pretty confident that they wanted me to be the guy to take over. So they asked me if I'd be willing to move out to LA, which was a difficult decision to make because I had established a pretty good life out in Kansas City. I had a lot of friends out there and a great job, but I knew that this was an opportunity not to be missed, so I packed up, moved to LA, and have been stepping into the big yellow shoes ever since.
So, who has influenced you in the voice acting realm?
That's a good question. I've always been a fan of Paul Frees and all the work he did, and of course, that goes back to my love of the Haunted Mansion. I love that narration and his work in there. I've also come to really appreciate and be influenced by Corey Burton, who is an amazing voice talent, as well as the rest of the gang. Russi Taylor, who does Mickey, is just an amazing voiceover talent. She does so many voices, and is also the most sweetest woman you'll ever meet. Bill Farmer is incredibly funny, easygoing. It's just so great to work with him and be around him. It makes you feel so comfortable. And then Tony, who does such a difficult voice of Donald, I can't help but be influenced by all of them. They've helped me so much at adjusting to this role, and so they're definitely my influences and the people that I look up to, for sure.
How do you prepare for work before you go into the studio?
I have a little CD that I've made with a couple clips of Walt and also Wayne and some songs. So I'll usually just warm up the vocal cords as you would with any other singing or speaking role. You just kind of need to get those vocal cords warmed up and ready to go. So I'll usually make sure that I'm talking first thing in the morning, just kind of keep that going, and then on the ride over to the studio, I'll sing along to whatever on the radio, or I'll pop in my CD with the Mickey clips and just kind of get into the appropriate range of falsetto that Mickey requires, and that's about it. I try to be aware of my voice, take good care of it, practice singing and enunciation and all the other stuff that you would expect goes into it. It's it's pretty simple. Everybody talks, but I just have to think a little bit more about it than most people do. Have to be a little bit more aware of how loud I'm talking and how I'm using my voice outside of the studio, because it'll really be affected. If you're out at a sports game cheering for a team and then the next day your voice is hoarse, it's not a good thing. So definitely something that I've had to learn is just being more aware of it and conscious of how I use my voice.
So I guess that means no screaming on California Screamin'.
No. I open my mouth and I make it seem like I'm screaming, but it's all fake. It's all for the cameras.
Could you talk about some of your favorite experiences since coming to work for Disney?
Sure. Gosh, it's hard to pick one. I will say that since coming to work for Disney, it's been one exciting experience after the other, and every time I think something's as cool as it could get, something else comes along, which is a pretty exciting part about this job, is that, hopefully I'll be doing this for as long as Wayne got to do it, and I just can't imagine all the different stuff I'll get to experience. That's a roundabout way of avoiding your question, because I'm trying to stall while I think of a specific instance, but being the Disney fan that I am, meeting the other voices was so amazing to me, because these are people that I had seen in interviews and read about and seen in books and on DVDs. And then I was meeting them in real life, and in a sense we were colleagues, and it was so surreal and so weird for me. So I think every time I meet somebody in the studio, that's pretty crazy. Some people who you wouldn't even know do Disney voices, I've gotten to meet. So that's always fun. I've gotten to do some special projects with the theme parks. Doing stuff for the cruise line and working with Imagineering has been a dream come true because I always wanted to be an Imagineer. So getting to be a part of that process is pretty amazing. And what else?
Do you ever find yourself geeking out?
Oh, all the time. All the time. The key to it is not letting anybody else know that you're geeking out. So, my second time in the studio is when Tony Anselmo, the voice of Donald Duck, came in to pick up his script, and I knew who he was, and I was so nervous that he was right behind me, and that I knew I was going to get to meet him, but I played it off as, being totally cool and it not affecting me, but I was pretty excited at that point. I was definitely geeking out, and I continue to geek out at everything, actually.
What Mickey role has been your favorite so far?
Anything I've done for Disneyland. Okay, I think it's safe to say Mickey's Sensational Parade, because that is my first Disneyland parade, and just knowing how significant Disneyland was to me growing up and how much it influenced me creatively and artistically, and even to this day is one of my favorite places to go. Doing that first parade and being able to go onto the parade route and know that is my voice being pumped out over those speakers and influencing people to get excited to meet Mickey, it's crazy. It's overwhelming. I don't know that I can put into words how it feels, so that is probably the coolest thing I've done thus far. But I've done a lot of cool stuff, so not to give that too much importance.
Well, speaking of stuff you've done, you're actively involved with Thank You Walt Disney. Can you tell us a little bit more about the group and how you're involved with them?
Sure. Thank You Walt Disney is an awesome group that's been around for a while. They are charged with the task of restoring Walt's original Laugh-O-Gram studio, which I talked about earlier, and it's located in Kansas City. It's the place where Walt got his start making the Alice comedies, and there's also the legend about how he had a mouse that he kept in his drawer, and later on that influenced him when coming up with a new character, and eventually that becoming Mickey. It's a fun story. I don't know how realistic that is, but the Laugh-O-Gram Studios, the building itself is still standing, and it would not be standing if it wasn't for the Thank You Walt Disney Group. About 10 years ago, the building was condemned and it was scheduled to be torn down, and this group of volunteers in Kansas City, realizing how special it was to not only Disney history but animation history, took it upon themselves to raise the funds necessary to buy the building, save it from demolition, and now they are constantly trying to raise the money to get it restored so that eventually it'll become an education center and a museum about animation and Walt's history in Kansas City. And I have a soft spot in my heart for this group because, it's a building that would easily go unnoticed and forgotten, but it is such a significant part of not only Disney history but Kansas City history that it's definitely worth saving. And they're doing all they can to preserve it and bring it back. So they have yearly fundraisers as well as different events throughout the year. They have a website, www.thankyouwaltdisney.org, that you can check out and see what's happening with them and keep track of all their events. And they're just on top of the task that they've taken on. They're just all a bunch of incredible people. Great people to talk to and meet, and they've dedicated a lot of time to preserving something that I know a lot of people will appreciate. So they're a really cool group.
That's really cool. So Bret, upcoming projects. Do you have any that you can talk about or that you're excited about, either with your voice or with your paintbrush?
That's always a tough question because there's this undisclosed non-disclosure agreement with Disney, so I'm not usually able to talk about a lot of stuff. I can tell you that Mickey and the gang recently recorded a Christmas album that'll be available exclusively in Target this Christmas. So that was a fun project. Epic Mickey's been a big success, so anyone who's hoping for a second one might not be too far off with that. Hopefully that'll be something that comes along eventually. There's just always exciting stuff going on in the theme parks, and on the cruise line there's been a lot of work for that. So,
how about with your paintbrush?
With the paintbrush, I have one piece that's being published right now by Disney Fine Art. It's titled "Hi, I'm Mickey Mouse." I know it was originally available only to Disney Movie Rewards members, but I believe it's going to be available to everybody pretty soon. So you can purchase a print from Disney Fine Art. I just today started a new painting that I'll be doing. Don't know the exact title yet, but it's a painting of The Brave Little Tailor, which is my favorite Mickey Mouse short.
Nice.
And I've also be working on another one, so there'll be a set of 3 of them total. So hopefully you can look for those in the near future.
So I'm really personally interested in your art. Could you tell us a little bit about your style and your influences?
Sure. My style is, for the Disney Fine Art at least, so far has definitely taken a more illustrative approach. Mm-hmm. I am heavily influenced by the artist J.C. Leindecker. I love his work. C.F. Payne is another editorial illustrator that I am inspired by. And then there's just so many others that it's hard to pinpoint. I'm always looking around at new trends, new color palettes, and I'm highly influenced by woodblock prints and incorporating texture into my art. So that's something I've been trying to incorporate on these first pieces I'm exploring. So yeah, I'm always looking around for new influences when it comes to my art.
So I know DC has one more question for you, but before I let her get to that, I've got one more question on your training for art. When you went to school for this, what types of training did you get where it's focusing, or what was it focused on?
Well, at Ringling, my major was illustration, so the curriculum at Ringling was to focus on fundamentals of drawing. So your first year you focused on still life drawing, as well as a real heavy importance on figure drawing, life drawing, from a live model, being able to capture life and movement. Also just the fundamentals of design with line weight and color and contrast and all that. Okay. And then as you progressed into your second, third, and fourth years, you started to focus more on your major, and there's a heavy emphasis on mediums. So I was trained in oil painting, acrylic painting, watercolor.
And what's the medium you prefer now?
I prefer oil painting, actually. Okay. For most of my personal art, I do, outside of Disney Fine Art, is plein air landscape painting. It's just great to get outside with a canvas and capture a landscape in oil. When it comes to my paintings I've done for Disney Fine Art, I've been doing gouache and acrylic, which just kind of helped me capture the textural qualities that I'm looking for, as well as some of the more fine rendering that so far I've been exploring when painting Mickey. And is there anywhere we can see your art? Yes, you can check it out on the Disney Fine Art page, which I believe is www.disneyfineart.com. I know they also have a Facebook page. You can keep tabs on my website, which is bretiwan.com. I also have a Twitter account. You can follow me on there, Bret Iwan VO. And let's see, where else? I have a Facebook fan page, so I try to keep updates on there. Yeah. Cool. So you should be able to find it somewhere in one of those outlets. Sorry, DC, now it's your turn.
It's time for the hard-hitting question.
Yes.
Tron or Tron Legacy?
I have to say Tron Legacy, because I have not seen the first Tron. And I'm embarrassed to admit it. I will say I have fond memories of the People Mover going through the Tron room. That was my first exposure to Tron, and my parents explained to me what it was. But regardless of not seeing the first one, I was very excited to see Tron Legacy, and I ended up loving it. So eventually I will check out Tron, and maybe I will love it just as much as I like Tron. How's that for a political answer? I'm trying to make everybody happy.
The last guest we had, he hadn't seen either.
Well, see,
Short answer.
I've seen one, and I love the soundtrack in the second one. So.
You're halfway there.
Exactly.
Bret's an absolutely fantastic guy, and it's so much fun to chat with him. But he does more than just voice Mickey Mouse, which is an incredible thing on its own. But he's also an amazing artist. In fact, he does art for Disney Fine Art. He's a designer. He's a lover of trains, which is what we really geeked out about when we first met. And because of this, Bret stopped by Daps Studios a few years ago to be on Geeks Corner. And we had a conversation that was a blast, to say the least. But it covered more than just what you'd expect with the voice of Mickey Mouse thing. In fact, the big part that I thought was really fun was where Bret talks about his love of trains. Let's take a listen to this. Welcome to Geeks Corner. I'm Mr. Daps.
I'm Katie.
Mickey Mouse, as well as many other characters from the early days of animation, would wear white gloves because it made it much easier to see the hands and animate them.
Very good. Is that true?
I have no idea. Who is that?
Okay. That's Cameron, and this is Bret Iwan, who knows a thing or two about Mickey Mouse, I guess you could say. Sure. And will be joining us tonight on Geeks Corner. Welcome, Bret.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bret and I are buddies that like trains together, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But first, we're going to Well, go ahead.
You're going to talk to us.
That's right,
Use the
you
hashtag
are.
Geeks Corner, because we're going to talk about stuff, and we'd love for you to talk at us, and we might even talk back at you, and that's the extent of the conversation.
Yeah.
And we might even say what's in
What's in the box?
the box, the briefcase, I don't even know what that is.
It's a thing.
Attaché.
Attaché. I like
Clutch?
that.
I
That
was thinking it
sounds...
was clutch, but yeah, I like attaché.
Attaché.
It's very
Yeah,
fun.
that sounds better. All right, well, let's talk about Bret, because that's why you're here.
Okay, let's talk about
Tell us a
Bret.
little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll ask you a few questions.
Okay, sure. Well, as Mickey, currently working on Mickey and the Roadster Racers, which is kind of a little bit of a follow-up to the Clubhouse World that was on and is still on.
But faster.
A little bit faster, because race cars are involved. Mickey and his pals run a garage, and they go on races and adventures that take them all over the world. And we...
Getting a huge Fast and the Furious vibe. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's the Disney version.
The name of one of our upcoming episodes is very similar to that. Yeah, we green light for season 3.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Started working on that, and it's a lot of fun. It's a fun new experience for Mickey to kind of be this race car driver.
What jobs has not that guy had, you know?
Right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's done everything.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Feels like it. I mean, he's a jack of all trades. But other than the show, we're gearing up for Mickey's 90th, which is happening
That's
all year.
super exciting.
Oh, that is soon.
So there's lots of fun stuff for him to do there. Yeah.
You've also got some other
Mickey
fun
stuff.
projects going on that's not necessarily Disney related.
Sure.
But it's a shared interest that we have. In
Yes.
fact, one of the first times we hung out, we spent the entire evening playing with your trains.
Yes.
Such a good sentence.
It's a good way to start a friendship, I think.
Yeah.
And that led to... I always had HO scale trains when I was a kid, but then I discovered you could do so much more, and you could have them go around your backyard.
Yes.
And so I now have this as well. And you've been doing some really cool projects with trains the last couple of years with your dad. And,
Yeah.
and you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, yeah, like you said, it started with... I grew up around trains. My dad had HO in our toy room, and then that expanded to a train that ran around the ceiling in the family room.
Which is something I've
Yes.
always wanted
HO?
also.
It was HO.
What is that?
Oh.
Oh, see that train right over there?
HO
That's
scale.
tiny ones?
Now you're gonna
Oh,
ask for
the ones
specifics.
right behind you.
They're
No.
tiny ones.
That's HO
Well,
scale.
there's even tinier than that, though, which is N, and then below that is Z. So that's,
And I don't honestly know how you would do those. Like, my hands aren't steady enough.
Yeah, very carefully.
Why do we
Have you
use
worked
so
with
many
those?
letters?
I haven't.
I could maybe do N, Z, I can't imagine.
Z, yeah, no. That's like micro machines.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how cool that would be? Though?
How would you
your
get them
micro
on the
machines
track,
out.
though? I don't know.
Tweezers, I think.
It'd be like
Just
your train has a pet.
I would break them.
That train.
Yeah, it's a regular train has a little.
So anyway,
Just like how humans have tiny pet humans.
yeah. So you and your dad and your brothers have done some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, so my dad, we had a family project that started probably only a year and a half, 2 years ago now. I have 3 younger brothers. They've all started having families of their own, and so with that came nieces and nephews for me, but grandchildren for my dad, my mom and dad. And my mom had bought them a little Tykes plastic train that we've all seen them, Thomas the Tank Engine type thing that goes around in circles. They loved it. He saw that and he said, well, if they're going to like trains, they're going to really like trains. And so he decided to build a replica. As they should.
Yes.
He built a half-scale replica of the old Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland attraction that used to be at Disneyland. So he found all his drawings and he built it from scratch. It's electric, just like the prototype was. So anyway, he built it. It's beautiful. It was much better than any of us could have imagined. And then the adults started going, can we ride that? And in fact, we can.
Yeah.
And so we set up a railroad. We have about 800 feet of track. It's 15-inch gauge. It runs on steel track that we hand laid ourselves, which was a learning experience.
We'll talk about the track. I think this is cool because it'll go into what we talk about next with your projects.
Okay.
But there's 2 ways to make track. And you decided that you should go all the way with the track, right?
There was a brief moment when, for budget reasons, it was being considered to make track out of wood, essentially make it look like real track. I said no. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So I started talking to great folks up at Hillcrest Railroad, or Hillcrest Farms, or shops, up near Fresno in Reedley. They have a 15-inch gauge railroad, and they've kind of become experts at steam equipment, and they've done some work for Disney. So I reached out to them. They were awesome at inviting me in and kind of showing me some things and sharing some info, which led me to finding a place that sells steel rail appropriate for this size of railroad. So we bought the rail. It comes in 30-foot lengths, delivered it up to the Sacramento area where the railroad is, and
you built trellises.
We cut down railroad ties, and then you lay the rail and spike it. Christmas Eve this year, I was wearing overalls, spiking rail because we had to have it go around as far as possible.
And what's even cooler about this railway, I think, is that it goes both in the front yard and the backyard over the driveway.
Yes.
And there's this cool, what do you call it?
It's a trestle. It comes out the front and it goes around a trestle, and then there's a removable trestle on the driveway side. And if you're interested in seeing pictures, you can go to Iwan Locomotive Works as our Instagram.
And it's very worth checking out. It's really fun. And videos.
But,
and you're building a roundhouse too, right?
We built a roundhouse for it, or an engine shed, a little station platform. I built a water tower.
So
I just
basically,
recorded a scratch narration for it, so it now has a soundtrack as you go around.
So basically, you're the coolest uncle ever.
It's pretty fun.
That's what you're going for?
Sunday night, I went around several times with my oldest niece, who just kept saying, "Let's go on a trip." And every time we came to the station, she's like, "Another trip?" And I was like, "Okay."
How do you say no to that?
No, I mean, you couldn't.
Now, are you narrating and coming up with a new trip each time around, or what?
We were telling stories.
Okay, that
looking
works.
For frogs and crickets and stuff like that.
That's
it's been a really cool experience.
I really enjoy, more so it seems like with the train community than any other hobby community. Every story I've ever heard about it is always, we had to go find somebody and we went and talked to them for a while. And I feel like that just doesn't happen with most things now. But now it's like, no, there was a guy over there and I went and had a conversation, we became friends, and then we discussed it. That blows my mind in the modern 21st century. I love it.
Well, I mean, it's this whole experience, trains and anything else, it's just been a great reminder to me that it's like, if you're willing to have the conversation and strike up the relationship, people are willing to share information regardless of what it is. If you share something in common, most of the time, you come talk to me about art and design or railroading, it's like, I will tell you what I know. I'm not going to hold that in because, we all just want to geek out with one another and find like-minded nerds.
So what's been the most been the most rewarding part of this process with the train?
I I mean, not to be cheesy, but the niece's reactions is probably, I mean, they're at an age where they're just like, they run up to it.
Yeah.
And they love it. But then also...
Which hopefully they'll do for the next 50, 60 years.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll be doing
that's
as
okay.
I can. And the other part has just been getting to see my dad. He's gotten some attention.
Your dad's one of the coolest
this.
guys I've ever met.
Well, thank you.
I
think so.
Like you should tell his Instagram too, because he makes really cool trains.
I wish I knew his. I think it's Bill Iwan. We'll find it.
We'll find it. Put in the description.
But it's been really cool to see him get some attention for his. I mean, I do art and design and home renovation, and all these other interests of mine are all based on my dad's influence growing up. He was just a great craftsman. He always had a great imagination, and my mom as well. She's super creative. But my parents' influence kind of spurred me on my journey, and so to see him now get some recognition for his talents, we were invited by the group at Walt's Barn in Griffith Park to come show the train last summer at one of their barbecues, and the reaction of the guests was just amazing to see. Like, they thought it was the real thing.
It looks like the real thing.
Yeah. And so any part I've been able to play, just like going up there, putting in the hours with him to help build it, and just to see his vision come to life has been pretty rewarding.
You're talking about design. You also you have another side gig that you do that's not really a side gig. It's pretty substantial.
My other job,
Talk about Bungalow Modern.
Bungalow Modern is my design company, whatever. I guess that's the best word for it.
It is.
Before ever getting into voice acting and doing the Mickey gig, which I've probably bored enough people talking about in the past.
You're so boring.
I know.
Dare you?
You said you wanted to say that on camera. Discuss this. Design and art have always been a passion of mine, and I bought a Craftsman home a few years ago, and through the renovations of that, I rediscovered a love for kind of working on older homes, and that inspired me to start a business where I was helping other people work on their homes, and that's just it's just one of those situations where things have kind of what's the word?
Evolved.
Yes. And so now I've had a chance to work on designing a couple restaurants. I'm really doing creative consulting in that capacity, but a couple restaurants. Recently was consulting with a railroad museum up in northern Nevada. So it's been a lot of fun to combine those passions. It's just another outlet of creativity.
Well, it's been cool watching you do this too, because you started with, I've got this idea that you didn't really have nailed down.
Oh, yeah.
And then you started doing one thing, and you're like, well, I don't know how to do this, so I'm going to figure it out. So you keep adding to your resume of all these different things that you do, whether it's rebuilding the cart?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 1900s luggage cart.
Yeah, the luggage cart, or
as you do.
Everybody does, or new driveways, or landscaping, or you literally, I think, have done just about everything you could do for a property now. It seems like
almost.
Like maybe a new roof you haven't done yet. But
I did redo the porch.
Okay, that counts.
I've got some electrical stuff that I can use.
I just had the city stop by today and give me a lecture on electrical.
Oh no!
You can do this yourself, and I was like, I don't.
Okay, so not electrical yet.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Just hold the wire and cut, and don't touch them both at the same time. You'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a chance you could die. It's fun.
Yeah.
Wow, that doesn't sound fun.
I won't mention what city that was.
No, don't. So there's one other cool fact about Bret that I absolutely love that I didn't warn him I was going to ask about.
This is new to me.
In your studio, aka garage, you have something that I think is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. That's pretty.
The buffalo.
The buffalo.
I love my buffalo.
Talk about your buffalo.
Go on.
I have a taxidermy buffalo head, which was actually the reason I converted the garage into my workshop studio, because he didn't fit in my house.
Talk about building around an idea.
Yeah.
This.
What to say about Buffy, who is not named after the Disneyland or Country Bear buffalo.
This Cameron's geeking out over in the corner.
Vampire Slayer?
No.
Oh, well.
After my stuffed animal that I had as a child.
Well, that's also adorable.
So how easy was it to get Buffy to your garage?
It was not easy. Even though he's full of foam. He's still very heavy. I found Buffy on my birthday a couple of years ago. I set out that morning and jokingly said to my friend, I really regret not buying this buffalo head I had found at a flea market the year before.
What a sentence.
I know, right? This is my life, Cameron. This is my life. And I said, today I'm buying a buffalo head. And we
just
laughed.
Speaking that into existence.
Just like putting it out to the universe, as Oprah would say. Hi-oh.
You're welcome to sit here too.
Back.
So, surprise. Thanks for letting me fill your seat tonight, Oprah.
That's true.
Anyway, long story short, last place we went to that day was a hat shop, and we walked in, and there was a buffalo head on the back wall, and it was like one of those movie moments. It was like, ah!
Did you walk in and say, how many monies for the buffalo?
I was just like, I bet to buy.
Pretty darn close.
Just throw in your wallet.
Put it in the back of the truck and drove it all the way down to Southern California.
And so talk about the style of your studio, because I think that's pretty cool
The
too.
style is, I guess, modern rustic with a heavy national park influence, I think is the best way to...
It always reminds me of Humphrey the Bear.
Oh, yes.
Like, I literally think of that cartoon every time I walk in there.
That is a compliment. Thank you.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Now
know.
I need a Humphrey the Bear poster.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you have a Humphrey the Bear poster, send it to us, and we'll make sure Brett gets
Yes,
it.
please.
Because that's the best way to get it, is you ask the internet, and then things
Maybe
appear, right?
things happen.
The internet is the universe.
We do have a P.O. box, so
Send
There
it
you
to
go.
us.
There you go.
Will it fit in a P.O. box?
we'll make it
I mean,
work.
I'd like a big poster.
Maybe
If it
just
can fit in a P.O. box,
just
it might be
direct
too
message
small.
me on Twitter, and we'll figure it out.
If
It'll
you're like,
it'll
you know
be
what?
great.
If you're gonna send it to the P.O. box, just don't send
Man,
it.
if we're putting it out to the internet, can we go a little more specific? I'm looking
These
for
are the
24 by
dimensions.
36 minimum. If it has a frame, that's great, but I'd like it to be real wood.
You're gonna reframe it anyway.
I will. Let's be
Like,
honest. I'm really excited though because this year for my birthday I'm going to Yellowstone and it'll be the first time that I see buffalo in person.
Really?
you're gonna love it.
I can't believe it's taken me this long, but I'm really excited about that.
That's really
As I'm
cool.
sure you know from having a head, they're huge.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, you're never mind.
Good.
Oh,
I wasn't sure if I was allowed to tell that story, so I just stopped. Anyway,
We're going to hear about it later. Let you
Yeah,
know.
we'll hear about it after the show and see if
buffalo are
you.
huge.
Yes, that is true. I don't even know what story you're gonna tell.
I'm very excited.
move
I'm
on.
very excited.
Just move on.
Before we move on to our final segment for the night, we've been watching the Twitters and the internets, and we've seen your threats really is what it comes down to, right?
Threats?
There's been threats
There have been threats.
that if we don't open that box, that something might happen to you, Cameron.
Brett.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So we're gonna let Brett open the box,
Brett.
What?
and you get to turn it around and show everybody
Oh, I have
what's
to show
inside
everybody?
the box.
Can I take
What's in
what's
the
in
box?
it first?
Yeah, you can totally take what's in it. Just remember, I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. All right, now you can show.
What is it for
Oh,
folks at
excuse me.
home?
It's candy.
The attaché is full of Starburst, fruit gushers, and that's all.
And not a backgammon game.
That's it. That's
All
the
right.
mystery.
So when we have guests on the show, we like to ask them fast 5 questions. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You'll answer them as quickly as you can, and if you're lucky, they won't comment too much.
You're not going to be lucky.
We talk
We
so
sat here for like
much.
30 minutes before the show. I know how much they talk.
Yeah, you're in trouble. All right, first one. Favorite Disney attraction?
The train.
Not
Disneyland
surprised.
Railroad.
Capo.
Favorite food?
Pizza.
Specifically?
Specifically?
Yeah.
Wood-fired pizza with avocado and lemon zest.
Yeah!
Good answer. Best vacation destination?
Best vacation destination? Ooh.
I know.
Don't do national parks. It's on your head.
No, I'm going to say the Pacific Northwest, though. North of Seattle. Puget Sound area is one of my favorite places.
Very good choice. Best Disney villain?
Jafar.
Why?
I love the animation. I love the design of him, and I just love his character.
The voice is awesome, too.
Yeah.
And your favorite Star Wars character?
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting you in trouble
I
here.
was a member of the Star Wars fan club.
I did not know that.
Years.
Huh, learned
It's
something
Joe
new.
Perkins,
Yeah,
isn't it?
back before it was cool, I just want to say.
Before you were wearing bow ties, Mr.
Those
Dabbs.
Web shows.
Who did you say?
It's Porkins. You're
It's not.
It's definitely Porkins.
No, it's not
right?
Porkins.
Well, then you're wrong.
He was part of the Star Wars fan club, not the Porkins fan club.
Porkins fan club for life.
No.
What was the
sounds
first
like a
one that
cop-out.
popped into your head?
I mean, Darth Vader.
Okay.
That's a good choice.
That's a
think
good choice.
It's a solid, good choice. Okay.
No,
Shiny
anything.
Pants Vader or
Thank you.
like
Which movie, Vader?
yeah, see.
You mean whether the cape goes
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
shoulder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Symmetrical helmet or
This is
not.
why he's on Geeks
Episode
Corner.
1 Vader.
It's not episode 1 Vader. It's not episode 1 through 3, I can tell you that.
I was gonna say it's episode 2 with the sand. That's a
Of course.
Vader.
I did sit next to the guy who played Vader in Rogue One. At
Ah,
Comic-Con I
that's
did
cool.
last
That's
year.
fun.
That's
Very
pretty cool.
nice chap. Very nice chap.
Very tall chap, I'm assuming.
What's that?
Tall chap?
Very tall.
There we are.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Probably Empire Vader.
I think
Yeah,
I
that's
love the shot when he comes into the Hoth base right when the Millennium Falcon's taking off.
Well, that was
that
the
is one of the
original,
best.
so
Yep.
Okay.
That
It was the only
correct
answer, actually,
Yeah.
so
Nice.
very,
Well done.
very well done.
We were hoping that's what you were gonna say.
And
Otherwise-
as much as we'd hope, we are running out of time for tonight. It's always fun to get to chat with Bret. He is an incredibly fantastic guy and also an interesting person. Huge thank you goes out to Bret for being such a good friend of Daps Magic through the years. As we look forward to the return of Fantasmic, I hope these conversations add a little bit of depth to the experience as we see the return of this show. I'm really excited for the return of this show, and I'm thankful to know that it's brought to life by people who love Disney just as much as we do. What do you think? Thank you so much for listening to Daps Magic, the podcast. Again, thank you, Bret, for always being so kind and gracious through the years. We'll have to see if we can get you connected for a new interview in the not-too-distant future. You can also find Bret on Instagram if you'd like to follow him. His handle is @Bret_Iwan, and I'll have that in the show notes as well. I hope you've enjoyed these conversations with Bret as much as we've enjoyed having them through the years. We'd love to connect with you more beyond this podcast, though. Please join us in the conversation in the comments, on Patreon, or on social media. We'd love to geek out with you about Disney and positive stuff every day. We also would love to meet you. We are going to be walking together through Disneyland and Disney California Adventure this summer on July 21st for the Chalk Walk. This will be a wonderful morning of having fun together, seeing Disney characters, being in the parks before they're open, and most importantly, making a difference as we support the Children's Hospital of Orange County. You can join our team Daps Magic at chalkwalk.org/dapsmagic, and we'll hope you'll join us today. And then we'll see you in the parks on July 21st, bright and early. Thank you again for listening to Daps Magic, the podcast. I appreciate you, your friendship, and your support. Make it a great week, and keep kind.